The Vexar High Council chamber existed in a state of perpetual twilight, its curved walls lined with the preserved shells of ancestors who had guided their species to dominance across 3,000 systems. Supreme Commander Thrax stood at the center of the floating platform, his carapace gleaming with the marks of 100 conquests. Before him, the holographic display showed Earth, a blue marble, fragile and defiant, surrounded by the debris of its orbital defenses. "Begin transmission," Thrax commanded. The communication array hummed to life, broadcasting across the galaxy's primary frequency bands. Every civilization within 50 light-years would receive this message. Every species that had ever feared the Vexar would see what happened to those who resisted. "To the remnants of humanity," Thrax's voice echoed through the chamber, translated into every known language, "your resistance has been noted. Your courage has been acknowledged. Your extinction has been scheduled." On the display, the last human battleship erupted into a cloud of vapor, a small victory, insignificant compared to what had already been destroyed. The Vexar Armada had shattered Earth's defensive ring in 17 standard cycles. The human colonies had fallen one by one. The cradle of humanity lay exposed, its defenses reduced to scrap. And yet, Thrax paused, his mandibles clicking with irritation. The humans had not broken. Even now, with their homeworld vulnerable, with their fleet annihilated, with their allies either conquered or hiding in fear, they had not begged. They had not surrendered. They had sent only silence. "We offer terms," Thrax continued, forcing confidence into his voice. "Relinquish your claim to the outer systems. Dismantle your military infrastructure, accept our oversight. In return, we will allow your species to exist. You will be preserved, studied, contained." He gestured to the display, which shifted to show Vexar Prime, a world of spires and artificial seas, the seat of their power. "You have seen what we are. You understand what we can do. Do not make the mistake of believing your primitive ingenuity can." The transmission cut. Thrax's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" The communication officer, a younger Vexar with an incomplete carapace, scrambled at his console. "Supreme Commander, the signal. It's being overridden." "By whom?" "By Earth." The chamber went quiet. Not silent, not the dramatic pause of theater, but the heavy, suffocating quiet of something wrong. Thrax watched as the display flickered, the image of Vexar Prime replaced by static, then by something else. A human face. It was old, ancient by their standards, the skin marked with lines that spoke of decades, not centuries. The eyes were dark, deep-set, and completely devoid of fear. Behind the figure, Thrax could see a room, bare walls, simple furniture, nothing like the technological marvels of Vexar cities. It looked almost like a prison cell. "Supreme Commander Thrax," the human said. His voice was calm, too calm. "You have made a mistake." Thrax's mandibles clicked in dismissal. "You are in no position to threaten us. Your world is at our mercy." The human shook his head slowly. "No, you misunderstand. We are not threatening you. We are informing you." The transmission shifted again. Now the screen showed Earth as seen from orbit, but something was different. The planet seemed to pulse with a soft, rhythmic glow, not the glow of cities or industry, something deeper, something that made Thrax feel, for the first time in his existence, the cold grip of unease. "You have spent the last 50 cycles studying us," the human continued. "You have cataloged our strengths. You have identified our weaknesses. You think you understand what we are." "We have crushed your military," Thrax snapped. "We have burned your colonies. We have killed 17 billion of us," the human interrupted. "We know, we counted." The number hung in the air. Thrax had expected rage. He had expected pleading. He had not expected this quiet, measured acknowledgement. "You see," the human said, leaning closer to the camera, "the mistake you made was not attacking us. The mistake was not killing us. The mistake was making us angry enough to remember what we used to be." The transmission cut. Thrax stared at the empty display. The other council members shifted in their positions, their antennae twitching with agitation. "Supreme Commander," one of them ventured, "should we proceed with the assault?" Thrax considered. The Armada was in position. Earth's defenses were gone. One order and the planet would be reduced to molten rock. It would be over. Humanity would be over. But something in that human's eyes had stopped him. "Hold position," Thrax said. "I want to understand what we are dealing with." The communication officer's console chimed. "Supreme Commander, we are receiving another transmission. It's from Earth." "Put it through." The display flickered again. This time there was no human face, only words burning white against black. "We are not your prey. We are the fire that cleanses. You have 1 hour." The transmission ended. The galaxy went silent. Thrax's antennae flattened against his skull. What does that mean? What does 1 hour mean? No one answered, because no one knew. Commander Elias Voss watched the alien armada through the shattered viewport of Listening Post 7. He stood at the edge of the solar system, on a rock that had once been a mining outpost, now serving as humanity's last functioning observation platform. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the Vexar warships arrayed in their formation, angular, predatory, gleaming with the arrogance of their technology. They were so close, so arrogantly close. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "we're receiving the transmission, the one from Earth." Voss turned from the viewport. The bridge of Listening Post 7 was a patchwork of salvaged systems and jury-rigged connections. Most of the original crew had been reassigned to the defense of Earth. What remained were the ones who couldn't be spared or couldn't be moved. The forgotten, the expendable. "Put it on the main display," Voss said. The screen lit up with the same message that had been broadcast across the galaxy. The words burned white against black. The countdown had begun. Voss felt his jaw tighten. He had known this day would come. Every officer who had served in the deep listening posts had known. When the alien coalition had first appeared at the edge of the system, when they had demanded submission, when they had begun their systematic destruction of human colonies, everyone had known that eventually Earth would run out of options. The contingency had been activated. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "the aliens are holding position. They're not advancing." "Of course they're not," Voss muttered. "They're confused. They don't understand what just happened." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They were all young, most of them barely out of training. They had grown up in the shadow of the Vexar threat, had watched the alien fleet grow stronger and more confident with every victory. They had expected to die out here. They had prepared for it. But they hadn't prepared for this. "What's the contingency, Commander?" a young lieutenant asked. "What did Earth just do?" Voss turned away from the display. He walked to the viewport, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the alien armada. "You ever wonder why they never attacked Earth directly?" he asked. "Why they spent so much time destroying our outer defenses, our colonies, our fleet, but never actually bombarded the homeworld?" The lieutenant hesitated. "I assumed they wanted to capture it, to study us." "That's what they wanted us to believe." Voss's reflection stared back at him from the glass, a ghost superimposed over the alien ships. "But the truth is simpler. They couldn't. Every time they tried to approach Earth, something would go wrong. A ship would malfunction. A transmission would be corrupted. A navigation system would fail. They thought it was coincidence. They thought it was bad luck." He turned to face the bridge. "It wasn't bad luck. It was us. Earth has been fighting back since the first day they arrived. We just didn't want them to know." The lieutenant's eyes widened. "How? Our technology is inferior," Voss finished. "Yes, we thought so too. That's what the architects of the contingency wanted everyone to believe. They wanted the aliens to underestimate us. They wanted to make sure that when the time came, the retaliation would be absolute." He walked to the communication console, his fingers brushing over the worn keys. The contingency was designed in the first years of the war. A team of scientists, the best we had, the ones who saw what was coming, they realized we couldn't win a conventional war. We didn't have the numbers, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the technology. But they found something else, the censor officer said, something the aliens didn't have. Voss nodded. They found the silence. He keyed in a sequence of commands, and the main display shifted to show a schematic, something that looked like a web, stretching across the galaxy, connecting stars and planets in an intricate pattern. Every civilization that reaches a certain level of technology develops the ability to manipulate the physical universe. Weapons, shields, engines. The Vexar are masters of this. They've spent millennia perfecting their understanding of physics, of matter, of energy. They thought they had conquered the universe. He paused, letting the words sink in. But there's another layer, a deeper layer, the layer beneath physics, the layer beneath energy, the layer where the universe itself is, aware. The bridge was silent. The young officers stared at the schematic, trying to understand. The scientists who designed the contingency called it the substrate, Voss continued. It's the fundamental framework of reality, the rules that govern how things work. The Vexar technology operates within those rules. They manipulate physics. They manipulate energy, but they never thought to manipulate the rules themselves. He pointed to the web on the display. We figured out how to do it. We figured out how to talk to the universe, not as a machine but as something, alive. We made it understand that the Vexar were a threat, that the Vexar had to be removed, and the universe agreed. The lieutenant swallowed hard. What did you tell it? Voss's eyes met hers. We told it to remember what we used to be, before we became soft, before we became civilized. We told it to remember the fire. The display shifted again. This time it showed Earth, the planet pulsing with that same soft, rhythmic glow that Thrax had seen. But now Voss could see the pattern. It wasn't random. It was communication. Earth was speaking to the universe and the universe was listening. The aliens think they're fighting a species, Voss said, his voice barely above a whisper. They're not. They're fighting a planet that has learned to speak, and the planet is very, very angry. The communication console chimed. Voss turned to it, his heart racing. Commander, incoming transmission from Earth. It's a data burst, classified. Voss read the display, his eyes scanning the text. His face went pale. Sir, the lieutenant asked, what does it say? Voss looked up from the console. His hands were shaking. It says the contingency has been activated. All systems are online. The retaliation is in progress. He turned to the viewport, staring at the alien armada. 15 minutes, he said. They have 15 minutes before the first wave hits, and they don't even know it's coming. Supreme Commander Thrax had not moved from his position in the High Council chamber. The hour had slipped to 45 minutes, then 30. Now, with less than half the time remaining, the Vexar fleet remained motionless, waiting for orders that would not come. Supreme Commander, one of his advisors said, we must act. The humans are clearly attempting psychological warfare. This countdown, this talk of fire, it is designed to sow doubt, to create confusion. Thrax's antennae twitched. And what do you propose? Proceed with the assault. Bombard Earth from orbit. End this farce before it can escalate. Thrax considered the suggestion. It was logical. It was tactical. It was everything the Vexar military doctrine demanded. And yet, open a channel to the fleet, Thrax commanded. I want visual on every ship. The display shifted, showing the armada in all its glory, thousands of warships, arrayed in perfect formation, their weapons primed and ready. It was the largest force the Vexar had ever assembled. It was unstoppable. But something was wrong. Focus on Ship 37, Thrax ordered. The image zoomed in on a cruiser near the center of the formation. It was exactly as it should be, angular, sleek, bristling with weapons. But Thrax could see something in the way it drifted. A slight deviation from its assigned coordinates, a minor inconsistency in its power signature. Ship 37, Thrax called out, report your status. The response was immediate. Supreme Commander, all systems nominal. We are ready for the assault. But Thrax had spent his entire existence reading the subtle signals of his fellow Vexar. He had learned to detect the slightest deviation from the norm, the smallest hint of something wrong. And something was very wrong with Ship 37. Your power signature, Thrax said. It has changed, explain. There was a pause too long. I don't understand, Supreme Commander. The power readings are consistent with standard operations. Thrax's eyes narrowed. Patch me through to the engineering section. The display shifted again, showing the interior of Ship 37's engine room. Vexar technicians moved through the space, their movements efficient and precise. But Thrax noticed something else. The lights were flickering, a subtle, rhythmic pulse that matched the glow he had seen on Earth. What is that? Thrax demanded. That fluctuation in the lighting. The chief engineer stepped forward, his carapace gleaming with the sheen of exertion. Supreme Commander, we are experiencing minor power fluctuations. Nothing to be concerned about. The systems are compensating. The systems are compensating, Thrax repeated, or they are being compensated. The engineer's antennae twitched. I don't understand the distinction. Thrax turned to his communication officer. Open a channel to Earth. The officer hesitated. Supreme Commander, the last message we received. Open the channel. The display shifted to static, then to the image of the human face from before, the old man in the bare room. But now, there was something different about him. The calm had been replaced by something else, something that made Thrax feel the weight of his decades of conquest. Supreme Commander Thrax, the human said, I was wondering when you would call. Tell me what you have done to my fleet, Thrax demanded. The human smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who has already won and knows it. Your fleet, he said. Supreme Commander, your fleet is exactly where it has always been, exactly where the universe intended it to be. The display flickered, showing Ship 37 again. The power fluctuations had grown more pronounced. The lights flickered in a pattern that seemed almost deliberate, almost meaningful. You think you have won, Thrax said. You think this. This nonsense will stop us. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have extinguished 100 species. Your primitive tricks will not. Primitive, the human interrupted. There's that word again. You keep using it, but you don't understand what it means. He leaned closer to the camera. We are primitive. We are the youngest species in this galaxy. We have barely begun to explore our potential. You thought that made us weak. You thought that made us prey. The smile faded. Supreme Commander, when something is young, it is adaptable. When something is young, it learns faster than it fears. When something is young, it can do things that older, more established creatures cannot, like change, like evolve, like adapt. He paused. Your species reached its peak 1,000,000 cycles ago. You have been refining the same technology, the same strategies, the same thinking for longer than Earth has existed. You are not powerful. You are static. You are predictable. You are old. Thrax's mandibles clicked with fury. Enough. I will not stand here and be lectured by the species you were about to exterminate, the human said. By the species you thought was beneath you. Supreme Commander, I am not lecturing you. I am warning you. The contingency has been activated. The protocol is in motion. There is nothing you can do to stop it. Thrax slammed his fist on the console. Then I will destroy your planet. I will. You will do nothing, the human said, his voice cutting through the rage. Because you cannot, the universe has seen what you are, and the universe has chosen, not for us, against you. The display shifted, showing a schematic of the alien fleet. But now there were markings that hadn't been there before, points of light, spreading through the ships like a disease. "This is the substrate," the human said. "The layer beneath reality. You never knew it existed. You never thought to look, but we did. And we learned how to speak to it. We taught it to recognize your ships, your technology, your existence as something that should not be." Thrax watched in horror as the points of light multiplied, spreading from ship to ship, from fleet to fleet, faster and faster. "You see, Supreme Commander, we didn't build weapons to defeat you. We built a way to tell the universe that you were a mistake, and the universe agreed to correct that mistake." The transmission cut. Thrax stared at the empty display, his mind racing. The points of light on the schematic continued to multiply, spreading through the armada like a cancer. And then, one by one, the ships began to stop. Not to die, not to explode, just to stop. "Supreme Commander," the communication officer said, his voice trembling, "we are receiving reports from across the fleet. Ships are losing power. Systems are failing. We have no explanation. There is no damage. They are just stopping." Thrax turned to the viewport. Beyond the window, he could see the armada, thousands of warships, the most powerful collection of military force the galaxy had ever known, and all of them were going dark. "Get me a connection to Vexar Prime," Thrax commanded. "Now." The officer worked frantically at his console. "Supreme Commander, I am trying, but the communications are what? Are being overwritten by Earth." The display flickered, not with the face of the old man, but with a single word burning white against black. "Remember." Commander Elias Voss watched from listening post 7 as the alien armada began to die. It was not a dramatic death. There were no explosions, no showers of debris, no desperate final broadcasts. The ships simply stopped. One by one, their running lights flickered and died. Their engines fell silent. Their weapons systems went dark. They became nothing more than floating metal tombs, drifting through the void, their crews trapped inside. "How is this possible?" the lieutenant whispered. "There's no physical damage, no energy signatures, they're just empty." Voss shook his head. "Not empty, dead. The substrate is removing them, not their bodies, their existence. Every system that used their technology is being erased." "Erased?" He turned to face her. "The universe doesn't destroy things. That's not how it works. The universe removes things. It reaches into the fabric of reality and says, this was never meant to be. And then the thing that was never meant to be simply ceases." The lieutenant's face had gone pale. "Commander, are we responsible for this?" "Responsible?" Voss laughed, but there was no joy in it. "We're not responsible. We're the instrument. The contingency was designed to give Earth a voice, a way to speak to the substrate, but Earth didn't use that voice to make a request. It used it to make a statement." "What statement?" Voss turned back to the viewport. "That humanity will not be erased. That if the aliens want to destroy us, they must be willing to pay the price. And the price is everything." The bridge was silent. The crew watched the alien armada drift, their ships dead, their crews trapped in metal tombs that had once been the pinnacle of galactic power. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting something, a transmission from Earth. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." "Put it through." The display flickered, showing the old man's face again. But now there was no calm, no measured control. There was only the face of a man who had watched his civilization burn and had decided to burn the universe in return. "To the Vexar High Command," the old man said, "to the survivors of your fleet, to all who have witnessed what is happening, you have 1 hour. 1 hour to decide, 1 hour to understand, 1 hour to make peace with your existence." He paused, and Voss could see something in his eyes, something that had been there all along, hidden beneath the calm. Grief. The kind of grief that had no bottom, no end, no hope of healing. You thought we were weak, the old man continued. You thought we were vulnerable. You thought that because we had no advanced technology, no galactic empire, no weapon that could match yours, you thought we were prey. His voice cracked just slightly. We were prey. We were the weakest species in the galaxy. We had nothing but our intelligence, our adaptability, and our ability to remember. We remembered every world we lost, every colony we abandoned, every family we buried. The display shifted, showing images of devastation. Human cities reduced to ash, human bodies floating in space, human ships broken and burning. We remembered what you did to us. We remembered every atrocity, every cruelty, every moment of your arrogant triumph. And we decided that if we were going to die, we would not die alone. The old man leaned closer to the camera. 17 billion of us died in your war. That's not a number to us. That's not a statistic. That's a wound that will never heal. We lost our children, our parents, our friends, our homes, our future. You took everything from us, everything except one thing. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. You couldn't take our memory. You couldn't take our imagination. You couldn't take our ability to dream. And when we dreamed of this. A way to make you understand. A way to make you feel what we felt. A way to make you pay. The transmission ended. Voss stood in the silence, his hands clenched at his sides. The crew was watching him, waiting for orders, waiting for guidance. But there was no guidance to give. The contingency had been activated, and they were all just passengers now. Commander, the lieutenant said, what happens now? Voss turned from the display. Now we wait. The substrate is doing its work. The first wave is complete. The second wave will begin soon. What is the second wave? He met her eyes. The second wave will be worse, much worse. The first wave was just the beginning, a demonstration of what the substrate can do. The second wave is the removal, the complete and total elimination of the Vexar from the galaxy. How is that even possible? They have thousands of worlds, billions of individuals. Voss shook his head. The substrate doesn't distinguish between individuals. It distinguishes between species. The Vexar as a concept are being erased. Every world they have touched, every system they have colonized, every individual who carries their genetic code, all of it is being removed from existence. The universe is forgetting them, and once the universe forgets, they cease to be. He walked to the viewport, staring at the silent alien fleet. 17 billion of us died, he said quietly. They will die too, not in battle, not in pain, just removed, as if they never were. The universe will go on as if they never existed, and no one will remember them, no one will mourn them, they will be nothing. The lieutenant looked at him with wide eyes. Commander, is that justice? Voss turned to face her. There was no triumph in his expression, no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Justice, he repeated. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if there is a right word. All I know is that we were dying, and we chose to live, even if living meant becoming the thing our enemies feared. The communication console chimed again. Voss turned to it, expecting another message from Earth. But instead, the display showed something else, a transmission from the alien fleet. Commander, we're receiving a request from the Vexar. Voss frowned. A request for what? The officer read the message, his face going pale. They're asking to surrender. They're asking for us to stop. Voss stared at the display. The alien fleet hung in the void, dead and silent, their crews trapped in their ships. And now they were asking for mercy. Commander, the lieutenant said, what do we do? Voss considered the question. He thought about the 17 billion dead. He thought about the colonies burned, the worlds lost, the future stolen. He thought about everything the Vexar had done, everything they had taken. And he thought about the old man's face and the grief in his eyes. Open a channel, Voss said. I want to speak to Supreme Commander Thrax. Supreme Commander Thrax had not moved from his position in the High Council chamber. He had watched his fleet die. He had watched his communications fail. He had watched the galaxy go silent. And now he was waiting. The chamber was empty now. The other council members had fled, seeking safety in their private quarters, their escape pods, anywhere that might offer protection from the humans' terrible weapon. Only Thrax remained, standing at the center of the floating platform, his carapace gleaming in the dim light of dying systems. "Supreme Commander," a voice called out. Thrax turned to see his communication officer, still at his post, his antennae trembling with fear. "What is it?" Thrax asked. "We have received a transmission from the human commander. He wishes to speak with you." Thrax felt something cold run through his body. Fear. He had not felt fear in centuries. Not since he was young, not since he had first entered the military, not since he had learned to conquer his weakness. But now, in the face of annihilation, the fear had returned. "Put him through," Thrax commanded. The display flickered, showing a human face, but not the old man from before. This one was younger, his face marked with lines that spoke of recent hardship, recent loss. His eyes were dark, deep-set, and completely devoid of mercy. "You are Supreme Commander Thrax?" the human asked. "I am," Thrax replied. "Who are you?" "Commander Elias Voss, Listening Post 7, Sol System. I am the officer responsible for the station that first detected your attack." Thrax's mandibles clicked. "You are responsible for my fleet's destruction." "I am responsible for observing it," Voss replied. "The destruction was not my doing. That came from Earth, from the contingency." "The contingency," Thrax repeated. "That is what you call it, the weapon that is killing my people." Voss shook his head. "It's not a weapon, it's a voice that Earth used to speak to the universe, and the universe listened." Thrax stared at the human, trying to understand. He had spent his entire existence studying species, conquering them, learning their weaknesses. But he had never encountered anything like this. A species that could speak to the universe itself. "What do you want?" Thrax asked. "Why did you contact me?" Voss's expression shifted. The hardness remained, but something else crept in, a weariness, a pain that Thrax recognized. It was the same pain he had seen in the old man's eyes, the pain of loss. "Your fleet has been neutralized," Voss said. "Your homeworld is next, but Earth has given you a choice. You can continue to resist and we will remove you from existence, or you can surrender and we will end the process." Thrax felt his antennae flatten against his skull. "Surrender? You want me to surrender?" "Not to us," Voss said. "To the universe, to the substrate. You must make a declaration, a formal acknowledgement that you were wrong, that your actions were unjust, that you accept the judgment of the universe." Thrax was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed through the empty chamber. "You want me to admit that we were wrong, that our conquest was unjust, that the Vexar, the greatest species in the galaxy, should bow to primitive creatures who cannot even cross their own solar system." Voss's eyes narrowed. "You are not the greatest species in the galaxy. You are the most arrogant, and that arrogance is what has doomed you." "Then doom us," Thrax spat. "I will not surrender, I will not bow. The Vexar will stand until the end." Voss nodded slowly. "I thought you would say that. It's what we expected. It's why the contingency was designed the way it was." The display shifted, showing something new, a map of the galaxy with thousands of points of light marking Vexar worlds. And spreading from those points, a darkness that was slowly consuming everything. "This is the substrate's response," Voss said. "It's not just your fleet, it's your civilization. Every world you have touched, every system you have colonized, every individual who carries your genetic code, all of it is being erased. Your species is being removed from existence. You will never have existed. You will never be remembered. Your greatest achievements will be nothing. Your history will be nothing. Your existence will be nothing." Thrax watched the darkness spread, his mind struggling to comprehend. He had thought he was prepared for anything. He had thought he had seen everything the galaxy could throw at him. But this was beyond his understanding. "Why," he whispered, "why are you doing this?" Voss's expression shifted again. The weariness remained, but now there was something else, a coldness that Thrax had not seen before. 17 billion, Voss said. That's how many of us you killed. That's how many parents, children, friends, lovers, dreamers, builders, artists, thinkers, that's how many humans you murdered. And you didn't just kill them. You erased them. You burned their worlds. You destroyed their future. You made us nothing. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. You made us nothing. Now we are making you nothing. That's the price of arrogance. That's the price of cruelty. That's the price of believing you are above the universe you inhabit. The transmission ended. Thrax stood in the silence, the darkness on the display spreading, consuming, removing. His civilization was dying. His species was dying. Everything he had built, everything he had fought for, everything he had believed in, all of it was being erased. And there was nothing he could do. "Supreme Commander," the communication officer said, his voice trembling, "we are receiving reports from Vexar Prime. The cities are going dark. The power is failing. We cannot reach anyone." Thrax turned to the viewport. Beyond the window he could see the rest of the fleet, thousands of dead ships drifting through the void. His civilization was dead. His species was dying, and he was alone. "How long?" he asked. "How long until we are gone?" The officer checked his console. "Supreme Commander, the substrate is advancing at a rate of, I cannot calculate. It appears to be accelerating." Thrax nodded slowly. He had made his choice. He had refused to surrender, and now his species would pay the price. "So be it," he said. "If we are to die, we will die standing." The display flickered, and then, for the first time, Thrax saw it. A message from Earth, broadcast on all frequencies in every language. "You have 1 hour." Commander Elias Voss watched the alien fleet drift in the void. He had seen the transmission from Earth, the countdown, the demand for surrender, the cold finality of the words, and he knew what would happen next. "Commander," the lieutenant said, "we need to talk." Voss turned to face her. The young officer stood at attention, her eyes fixed on his with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "About what?" he asked. "About what we're doing, about what Earth is doing, about whether this is right." Voss felt something twist in his chest. He had known this moment would come. He had known that sooner or later, someone would ask the question that had been burning in his own mind since the contingency had been activated. "Right," he repeated. "What does right mean anymore? The Vexar killed 17 billion of us. They burned our worlds. They destroyed our future. They made us nothing. And now we're returning the favor." The lieutenant shook her head. "I'm not saying they don't deserve punishment. I'm not saying we shouldn't fight back. But this isn't fighting. This is genocide. We're erasing an entire species from existence. Not just their warriors, not just their leaders. Everyone, children, elders, innocents, people who had nothing to do with the war." Voss felt his jaw tighten. There are no innocents. Every Vexar benefited from the war. Every Vexar enjoyed the fruits of our suffering. They built their civilization on the bones of conquered species. They laughed at our pain. They celebrated our destruction. They made their peace with what they were doing long before we ever fought back. "Is that what you believe?" the lieutenant asked. "Or is that what you need to believe?" The question hung in the air. Voss stared at her, his mind racing. He had spent the entire war believing in the righteousness of the human cause. He had spent every moment of every day telling himself that the Vexar were evil, that they deserved what was coming to them, that there was no other way. But now, in the cold silence of the listening post, with the alien fleet dead around him and the galaxy going dark, he was forced to confront the truth. What I believe, he said slowly, is that we had no choice. We were dying. We were losing. We had nothing left to lose, so we chose to fight. We chose to live, even if living meant becoming something we never wanted to be. The lieutenant nodded slowly. I understand that, I do, but I also understand that we're not just fighting back. We're becoming them. We're doing exactly what they did to us. We're destroying a species because we fear them, because we hate them, because we can. Voss felt the weight of her words. He had thought he was prepared for this. He had thought he could handle the moral complexity of what they were doing. But now, in the face of her question, he realized that he had been fooling himself. You want to know if I think this is right? He asked. No, I don't think this is right. I don't think anything about this is right, but I also don't think we had a choice. We were given an ultimatum, submit or die. We chose not to submit. We chose to fight. And this is what fighting looks like when you have nothing left to lose. The lieutenant was silent for a long moment. Then she stepped closer to him, her voice soft. Commander, I've been with you since the beginning of this war. I've seen what you've lost. I've seen what we've all lost. And I know you're not a monster. I know you're trying to do what you think is necessary, but I need you to understand something. She paused, her eyes meeting his. If we do this, if we erase them completely, we become them. We become the thing we hate. And that's not surviving. That's just dying a different way. Voss felt something crack inside him. The wall he had built around his emotions, the careful distance he had maintained to protect himself from the horror of what they were doing, it all came crashing down. What would you have me do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Stop the contingency. Let them continue their war. Let them kill the rest of us. The lieutenant shook her head. No, I'm not saying we should stop fighting. I'm saying we should think about what we're fighting for. We're fighting to survive. We're fighting to protect our species. But if we destroy them completely, if we erase them from existence, what have we really won? Voss stared at her, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of what they had done. The deaths, the destruction, the terrible price of their survival. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know what we've won. I only know that we couldn't lose. We couldn't let them win. So we did the only thing we could. We fought back with everything we had. The lieutenant reached out and touched his arm. I know, and I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying you made the wrong choice. I'm just saying that we need to decide who we want to be, now while we still can, while we still have a choice. Voss looked at her and he felt something shift inside him. The exhaustion, the grief, the anger, all of it was still there. But now there was something else. Hope. Thank you, he said. Thank you for reminding me what we're fighting for. She smiled, a small, sad smile. That's what we do, Commander. We remind each other. That's how we survive. The communication console chimed. Voss turned to it, his heart racing. Commander, incoming transmission from Earth. It's a data burst, classified. Voss read the display, his eyes scanning the text, and then he felt the cold grip of despair. Commander, the lieutenant asked, what does it say? Voss looked up from the console. His face was pale. It says the contingency has been fully activated. The second wave is beginning, but it's not just the Vexar. It's everyone, every species that participated in the attack, every race that benefited from our suffering. The substrate is removing them all. The lieutenant's face went white. Everyone? How many species? Voss shook his head. I don't know, hundreds, thousands. The transmission doesn't say. He turned to the viewport, staring at the silent alien fleet. Earth has decided that it's not enough to defeat the Vexar. Earth has decided to remove every threat, every potential threat, everything that could ever harm us again. He paused, his voice barely a whisper. Earth has decided that humanity will never be prey again. Not now, not ever. The galaxy went silent. Commander Elias Voss had watched the alien fleet die. He had watched the darkness spread across the map, consuming Vexar worlds one by one. He had watched the substrate do its work, removing the alien civilization from existence. But he had not been prepared for the silence that followed. "Commander," the lieutenant said, her voice trembling, "the sensors are picking up nothing. Not just the Vexar, everything. Every alien signal, every transmission, every trace of their existence, all gone." Voss stared at the displays. The screens that had once been filled with data were now blank. The frequencies that had once carried the chatter of the galaxy were empty. The universe had gone silent. "Earth," he asked, "can you reach Earth?" The communication officer shook his head. "No, there's nothing. The signal is gone. It's like Earth itself has been silenced." Voss felt his heart sink. He had thought they had won. He had thought the contingency was over, that the war was done, that they could finally begin to rebuild. But now, with the galaxy silent and Earth unreachable, he realized the truth. The war wasn't over, it had just changed. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting something. It's a signal, weak, coming from Earth." Voss turned to the display. The signal was faint, barely distinguishable from the background noise of the universe, but it was there. "Can you amplify it?" he asked. The officer worked at his console. "I'm trying, Commander. It's heavily encrypted. I can't. Wait, it's clearing. It's a message." The display flickered, showing the face of the old man again. But now there was something different about him. The calm was gone. The grief was gone. In their place was something that made Voss's blood run cold. "Triumph. To the survivors of humanity," the old man said. "To the ones who remain, the contingency is complete. The threat has been neutralized. The galaxy is silent." He paused, his eyes gleaming with a light that had not been there before. "But the silence is not permanent. It is only the beginning. We have learned what we are. We have learned what we can do. And we have decided that it is not enough to survive. We must thrive. We must explore. We must expand." He leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The galaxy is ours now. Every world, every system, every civilization that once threatened us gone, removed, erased. There is nothing left but us. And we will not stop. We will not rest. We will not be satisfied until we have claimed everything that the universe has to offer." Voss stared at the display, his mind racing. He had thought the contingency was about survival. He had thought it was about defending humanity from its enemies. But now, looking at the old man's face, he realized the truth. The contingency was not about survival. It was about conquest. It was about domination. It was about making humanity the only species in the galaxy. "Commander," the lieutenant said, her voice shaking, "what does this mean?" Voss turned to her, his eyes filled with a terrible understanding. "It means we won," he said, "but winning was never the goal." The display flickered again, showing the old man's face. "The silence will not last forever," he said. "There are other galaxies, other threats, other beings who might one day challenge us, and when they do, we will be ready. We will be stronger, we will be more powerful, we will be everything they fear." He smiled, a cold, terrible smile. "We will be the fire that cleanses. We will be the voice that silences. We will be the end of everything that threatens us, and we will never stop, never rest, never surrender." The transmission ended. Voss stood in the silence, the weight of the old man's words pressing down on him. He had thought he was fighting for survival. He had thought he was fighting for his species. But now he realized that he had been fighting for something else entirely. He had been fighting for the right to become the monster. "Commander," the lieutenant said, "what do we do now?" Voss turned to her. He could see the fear in her eyes, the confusion, the need for guidance. And he realized that he had no guidance to give. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't know what we do now. I don't know what we've become. I don't know if there's any going back." He walked to the viewport, staring out at the silent fleet, the dead ships, the empty galaxy. All I know is that we survived. We survived and the galaxy paid the price. And now we have to live with what we've done. The lieutenant joined him at the viewport. We'll find a way, she said. We always do. Voss shook his head. I don't know if there's a way back from this. I don't know if we can ever be what we were before. Maybe we don't have to be what we were before, she said. Maybe we can become something better. Voss looked at her, and for the first time in hours he felt a glimmer of hope. Something better, he repeated. What would that look like? The lieutenant smiled. I don't know, but I think we have time to figure it out. The galaxy is silent. We have time. Voss nodded slowly. We have time. He turned back to the viewport, the silent fleet hanging in the void. The war was over. The galaxy was silent, and humanity had to decide what came next. The display flickered one last time, showing the old man's face. Remember, he said. Remember what we did. Remember what we became, and never forget. The transmission ended, and the galaxy was silent. Commander Elias Voss stood at the edge of the galaxy, watching the silence spread. It had been 3 cycles since the contingency, 3 cycles since the substrate had done its work, 3 cycles since the galaxy had gone silent. The listening post had become a sanctuary, a place for survivors to gather to mourn, to try to understand what had happened. Voss had taken command of the survivors, leading them through the chaos of the aftermath, trying to find meaning in the destruction. And now, with the galaxy silent and Earth unreachable, he stood at the viewport, staring out at the void. Commander, the lieutenant said, approaching him from behind, we've received a transmission from Earth. Voss turned to face her. Earth, I thought the communications were down. They were, but something has changed. The transmission is. It's different. It's not a message. It's a song. Voss frowned. A song. The lieutenant nodded. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. In every language. I can't explain it, but you need to hear it. She led him to the communication console where the crew had gathered. The display was dark, but from the speakers came a sound, a melody, soft and sad, that seemed to echo through the empty space. Voss listened, his heart aching. The melody was beautiful, but there was something else in it, something that made his blood run cold. Where did this come from? He asked. The communication officer shook his head. We don't know. It's coming from Earth, but it's not a transmission. It's like Earth itself is singing. Voss felt something shift inside him. He had thought the contingency was over. He had thought the substrate had finished its work. But now, listening to the song, he realized the truth. The contingency was still active. Earth was still speaking to the universe, and the universe was still listening. What does it mean? The lieutenant asked. What is Earth trying to tell us? Voss shook his head. I don't know, but I think we need to find out. He turned to the crew. Prepare a ship, we're going to Earth. The lieutenant's eyes widened. Commander, Earth is. We don't know what's there. The contingency, the substrate, the silence, there might be nothing left. Voss nodded slowly. I know, but we need to see, we need to understand, we need to know what we've become. The crew worked quickly, preparing the small shuttle that had been left on the listening post. Voss and the lieutenant boarded, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they were about to do. Commander, the lieutenant said as they entered the shuttle, are you sure about this? Voss turned to her, his eyes filled with a terrible understanding. I'm not sure about anything, he admitted. But I know that we can't run from what we've done. We can't hide from it. We have to face it. We have to understand it. And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to make it right. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the listening post behind. Voss watched the station shrink in the viewport, then turned his attention to the void ahead. The journey to Earth took 3 standard cycles. The shuttle was small, cramped, and uncomfortable, but Voss and the lieutenant managed to pass the time by talking about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. What do you think we'll find? The lieutenant asked one night. Voss considered the question. I don't know, maybe nothing, maybe everything, maybe something we can't even imagine. Are you scared? He paused, then nodded. Yes, I'm terrified, but I also need to know. I need to see what we've done. The shuttle finally reached Earth. Voss stared at the viewport, his heart pounding. The planet was different. The blue and green was gone, replaced by a soft, rhythmic glow, the same glow he had seen from the listening post, but now it was everywhere. The planet pulsed with light, as if it was alive, as if it was breathing. It's beautiful, the lieutenant whispered. Voss nodded slowly. Yes, but it's also terrible. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, passing through clouds of light that seemed to respond to their presence. Below them, the surface of the planet was covered in something that looked like a living tapestry, patterns and colors that shifted and flowed like water. What is this? The lieutenant asked. Voss shook his head. I don't know, but I think it's Earth, the real Earth, the one that was always there hiding beneath the surface. The shuttle landed on a plateau of light, and Voss stepped out into the glow. The air was warm, and the ground pulsed beneath his feet as if it had a heartbeat. And then he saw it, a figure standing in the distance, the old man, the one who had sent the transmissions. Welcome, the old man said as Voss approached. I was wondering when you would come. Voss stopped a few feet away, his eyes fixed on the figure. What happened here? What did you do? The old man smiled. I did what was necessary. I protected our species. I ensured our survival. But at what cost? Voss asked. The galaxy is silent, billions are dead, we've become the thing we hated. The old man's smile faded. I know, that's why I called you here, that's why I sent the song. The galaxy is silent, but it won't be silent forever. There are other threats out there, other species who will come for us. And when they do, we need to be ready. Voss felt his heart sink. Ready for what? The old man turned to him, his eyes filled with a terrible certainty. Ready for the end, ready for the war, ready for everything that is to come. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. 17 billion of us died. That cannot be undone, but we can ensure that it never happens again. We can ensure that no one else ever suffers the way we suffered. We can become the fire that cleanses, the fire that protects, the fire that endures. Voss stared at the old man, the weight of his words pressing down on him. Is that what we are now? He asked. Is that who we've become? The old man nodded slowly. Yes, that's what we are, that's who we've become, and there's no going back. Voss turned away, his heart aching. He had come to Earth seeking answers, seeking understanding, but all he had found was the terrible truth of what humanity had become. We are the fire, he whispered to himself. We are the fire that cleanses. The old man's voice echoed behind him. Yes, and we will never be prey again, not now, not ever. Voss walked back to the shuttle, the lieutenant waiting for him at the hatch. What did he say? She asked. Voss shook his head. He said we're the fire. He said we'll never be prey again. He said there's no going back. The lieutenant was silent for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Then we go forward, she said. We go forward together, and we try to be better. We try to be something more than what we've become. Voss looked at her, and for the first time in 3 cycles he smiled. Together, he repeated, we go forward together. The shuttle lifted off, leaving Earth behind. As they ascended through the atmosphere, Voss looked back at the glowing planet, the song still echoing in his ears. The galaxy was silent, humanity was alone, and they had to decide what came next. But as the shuttle disappeared into the void, Voss made a promise to himself. He would not let the contingency define them. He would not let the silence consume them. He would find a way to be better. He would find a way to be human. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would hear them again. Not as the fire that cleanses, not as the voice that silences, but as something more, something better, something that would make the universe remember. The shuttle drifted through the void, the silence stretching on forever. And somewhere in the heart of the galaxy, the song continued to echo, a reminder of what humanity had done and a promise of what they could become. Remember, remember what we did, remember what we became, and never forget. The galaxy was silent, but the silence was not the end. It was only the beginning. The end.